Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Letting Go Cafe's podcast with conversations about change. I'm Darren L Johnson, and let's just dive right in.
Welcome to Letting Go Cafe, offers change and solution, live conversations, and real talk for you. Letting Go Cafe.
Today, I want to ask you a question. What if joy wasn't something we chase, but something we uncover along the way when we let go? Today's episode is titled Finding Joy in Vibration, because sometimes the path to joy isn't about doing more or being more. Sometimes it's about letting go of the thoughts, emotions, and or stories that we make up in our head that are dimming the light and lowering our emotional vibration. Now, for those of you who may be a little skeptical about all of this talk about vibration or emotional frequency, let me offer a foundation that is backed by science. Research in neuroscience and psychology increasingly supports the idea that our emotions have a measurable impact on our brain chemistry, our physical health, and cognitive function. For example, Dr. David Hawkins developed a map of consciousness. That map assigns energy frequencies to emotions, showing that feelings like shame, guilt, and fear resonate at a lower frequency, while love, peace, and joy resonate at a much higher frequency. Some may debate the exact calibration of those frequencies, but the principle aligns with other well-established models. For example, psychologist Barbara Fredrickson, in her Broaden and Build theory research, she found that positive emotions expand our cognitive range and resilience, literally helping us to think more clearly and creatively. Studies using fMRI scans show that practicing gratitude, reframing thoughts, and choosing positive perspectives activate the brain's prefrontal cortex, improving emotional regulation, decision-making, and overall well-being. So if vibration sounds a little mystical, the results are very real and backed by science. And that's what today's conversation is about, using simple awareness to shift your emotional state, which in turn creates a more joyful experience in your life on a moment-to-moment, day-by-day basis. When I first read the book, Ask and It Is Given, I thought it was nice. It was encouraging, it was inspiring, but maybe not life-changing. But something called me back to that book recently. And maybe it was the season that I'm in right now. I don't know. But I was ready to read the book and go a little deeper. And this time, there was a tool that leapt off the page. A tool for recognizing your emotional vibrations. Now, if the word vibration, again, sounds a little abstract to you, think of it this way. Your emotions have energy. Your emotions are energy. And they carry a frequency. And that frequency shapes the kind of thoughts, the kind of actions, and ultimately how you create your life. So in this book, Ask and It Is Given, the Hicks created a scale, an emotional scale that lays out how we react and respond to the world around us. It's a vibrational scale, if you will, and it goes from low to high. And on the low end of that scale, you have feelings like depression, fear, anger. On the high end of that scale, you have states like emotional states like joy, love, and freedom. Here's the key. Just recognizing where you are on the scale gives you the power to move, to rise, to shift. And that is where letting go comes in. Let me give you a real example. And this just happened recently. I was out walking along the beach, and I do that. I go to the beach as often as I can, sometimes 2 or 3 times a week. And I just walk for a mile or 2, sometimes 3. And I use that time to clear my head, to think about my goals, to imagine where I want to go, to think about how I want to present certain topics on this podcast. And I'm there thinking about my life overall. This one time, I was thinking about a contract that I was about to enter into with a nonprofit organization. And for some reason, as I began to think more about what I want to do with this client and the outcomes that I wanted for this session that I was going to be doing, I began to feel anxious. And it wasn't the work that was making me feel anxious, but there was something else. I had a conversation with a member of the board, and it left me feeling uneasy. And as I walked along the beach, I noticed that this familiar tightness began to creep into my chest. And I think about this as an awareness. This is a gift that our body gives us. When something is feeling off in our body, there are signs. And if we're tuned into ourselves, we'll recognize those signs. And I like to think of those signs as gifts. In this case, it was the gift of awareness. And I could feel that I was dipping into a lower vibrational state as I thought more about the conversation and how I was feeling. So what did I do? I paused. The beautiful thing about whatever happens in our lives is that we can always take a pause. When we start to feel as if things aren't going the way we think they should, or if we're not feeling good about a direction that a conversation is taking or that a situation is taking, then we can actually pause. So I did. I paused. I checked in with myself and I asked, what am I feeling right now? And once I identified that feeling, the next question is this where I want to be? Is this how I want to feel as I begin to prepare for this session? And do I want to bring that feeling into that preparation, my mindset as I prepare for this? Do I want to bring that feeling into the outcome? And the answer is definitely not. So I did 2 things. I changed the thought, which in turn changed how I was feeling. I reframed this whole situation, and I left out in that reframing the conversation with this board member. And I began to focus more on how I want to show up, how I want to empower this group, how clear do I want to be about in my presentation, how joyful do I want to show up, and I began to focus more on the outcomes for the group. How do I want them to feel? How empowered do I want them to feel? What are some of the outcomes specifically that I want for this group as I facilitate this session? The moment that I made that shift and did that reframing, the anxiety left, and I was able to move to a higher frequency on that scale that I just mentioned to you. And part of the reason why I was able to do that is because I shifted, reframed my thoughts. Now, I'm not saying that you can just, for every situation, you can just change your thought and it's going to change the outcome. There's a lot that goes into the process, but it starts with heightening your awareness, being tuned in to how you're feeling every second and every interaction. Every time you look in the mirror at yourself, how are you feeling? This is all backed by science. And I mentioned Barbara Fredrickson earlier. She actually calls the broaden and build theory an opportunity for someone to identify positive emotions like joy and gratitude. People who are higher on the scale that I mentioned to you, the emotional scale, tend to see more options in their lives. They tend to solve problems at a better rate, and they tend to connect more deeply with others. And in neuroscience, there's evidence that when we reframe our thoughts, we activate the prefrontal cortex of our brain, which helps to regulate emotions and make wise decisions. We also reduce activity in the amygdala portion of the brain, which is where we tend to hold our fear. So when you let go of a thought that drags you down, you're not just feeling better, you're building a healthier, more empowered brain and putting yourself in a position to choose to let go. Now, I want you to think of letting go as a superpower. I think of it this way. It's a superpower that I hold, and I release that superpower in every interaction, one moment at a time. It's a very powerful notion when you think about the fact that you completely, 100% can control your reaction to the world around you by being tuned into how you're feeling and your emotions along the ways. It's a powerful notion. Heightening that awareness is so very important. Let me offer an activity, a practice, and this is based on the emotional guidance scale that I talked about in the Asking It Is Given book. I want you to take a breath right now. Stop, pause for a second. Take a deep breath. Inhale and exhale. Tune into your feelings and ask yourself, what am I feeling right now in this moment? Where do I fall on the emotional scale? Am I feeling fearful, anxious about something? Or do I feel joyful? What can I control or have a positive impact on in this moment? And what's one thought I could reach for that feels better than the thought that's causing me to feel anxiety or fear? Those are some questions that when you get into a situation where you noticed that you're starting to feel out of yourself in a not so good way, then those are questions that you can actually pause and ask yourself. And of course, you might create some different questions that would help you to tune into and heighten your awareness about how you're feeling. But generally speaking, if you're feeling frustration, maybe reach for hope. If you're in fear, maybe you can reach for curiosity. The goal isn't to leap from fear or sadness to hope or bliss. The goal is to move one rung up on the ladder of emotional guidance based on the scale. If you can move one rung up, if you can shift your thought just slightly, it will make a huge difference. You don't need to force it. You just need to notice it. That awareness, that choice is the beginning of your letting go journey or your release in that moment. So if you're holding on to stress or anger or doubt, I want to remind you today, joy is not waiting at the end of your journey. It is available during the journey. You can grab onto joy at any moment, at any time. It's completely up to you. When you let go, even a little, you rise. When you reclaim your power, you do so by shifting your emotional response to any situation. When you do that, you open the door to joy. Whether you're just beginning your letting go journey or you've been walking in it for years, my ebook, Letting Go of Stuff, is a beautiful companion for that journey. I would highly recommend that you visit letitgocafe.com and get the ebook. It's less than $5. But the value that ebook will bring to your journey is unparalleled. And remember, every time you choose a better feeling thought, you're not escaping reality, you're shaping reality. Thanks for spending time with me today. If this episode sparked something in you, share it with a friend or colleague, and let me know what you're letting go of this week. I want to know. Write it in the comments. Until next time, be well, stay aware, and keep rising.
Letting Go Cafe.